Everyone, previous video we have seen about the inlet of the thorax. Some part of the inlet of thorax is left over that we are going to see in this video. Okay, so inlet of thorax, it is inlet of thorax, you can say part 2. Okay, part 2. The leftover topics of this inlet of thorax are diaphragm of the thorax, diaphragm of the inlet of thorax. You get structures passing through the inlet of thorax, and lastly applied anatomy. Okay, so before we start this leftover topics, once again we'll draw the diagram for the inlet of thorax. Suppose here we get first thoracic vertebra. Here is the manubrium sterni. Here is the manubrium sterni. This is manubrium sterni. Okay, and on either side you get the first rib. Okay, first rib. This is a head, neck, tubercle and the shaft of the first rib. Okay, so on this side also you get the first rib, head, neck, tubercle and the shaft of the first rib, like this. Okay, and this first rib is connected to the sternum by its costal cartilage. It is connected to the sternum, that is manubrium sterni, through its own costal cartilage. So we will label this as first rib. This is first rib and this is costal cartilage of the first rib, costal cartilage of first rib. Okay, so this is the boundary of the inlet of thorax. You know, anteriorly it is bounded by the upper border of the manubrium sterni, posteriorly by the superior surface of the body of the first thoracic vertebra, and on either side by the inner border of the first rib and its costal cartilage. Now we are going to see about the diaphragm. So first about the diaphragm, we discuss this diaphragm under different headings like synonym, then introduction, shape of this diaphragm, how is the shape, where it is attached, so attachments, what are the relations of this diaphragm, functions of this diaphragm, and lastly we will see the morphology of the diaphragm. Morphology of the diaphragm. Okay, now synonym. This diaphragm is also called as Simpson's fascia. It is also called as Simpson's fascia or suprapleural membrane. Suprapleural membrane. Okay, as the name suggests, it lies above the pleura, so the name suprapleural membrane. If I draw this diaphragm, it will be like this. So here you get the disc between C7 vertebra and T1 vertebra. So now I am drawing, this is C7 vertebra and this is the transverse process of C7 vertebra. Now if you are supposed to draw here the diaphragm will be in this way. You will be drawing the diaphragm in this way. So here this is the diaphragm of the inlet of thorax. Okay, similarly on this side also if you are drawing, it will be like this. So this is the diaphragm of the inlet of thorax, which is also called as the Simpson's fascia. Okay, so in the introduction you will say that this diaphragm or Simpson's fascia partly separates the thorax. Here you get the thorax, the above is the neck, partly separates the thorax from the neck. Okay, so that is in the introduction. Okay, now coming to the shape. If you see the shape of the diaphragm, it is very much triangular in the shape. See here, this is the shape of the diaphragm. So it is triangular. You can say shape is triangular, or it is tent shape. It forms the tent for the apex of lung. It is tent shape or it is triangular in the shape. So in this triangle, if you observe carefully, here you get, this is the apex. Here is the apex of the triangle or the suprapleural membrane, while here you get this region. This is the base. This is the base. So apex and base are the two parts mainly of this diaphragm, as it is triangular. So now we will see where exactly the apex is attached. So from the diagram it is clear, it is attached to the transverse process of C7 vertebra. To be specific, it is attached to the tip of transverse process of C7 vertebra, while the base is attached to the inner border of first rib and is costal cartilage. So you will be writing here attachment apex. Apex is attached to the tip of transverse process of C7 vertebra, and base is attached to the inner border of first rib and its costal cartilage So that is about the attachment. Now for the relation, you are taking the section passing through this plane. If you take the section through this plane and observe, so the C7 vertebra will be like this only. So here this is C7 vertebra with the transverse process. Here you get T1 vertebra with its transverse process. Okay, and in between you get, here this is the intervertebral disc. Okay, and somewhere here you get the first rib, because now the first rib is cut. This first rib is cut. So as it is flat, shaft of this first rib is flat, it is having superior or upper surface, lower surface, inner border is sharp than the outer border, and if you have to draw the Simpson's fascia, it will be over here. So this is the Simpson's fascia or the diaphragm of the inlet. This is Simpson's fascia. Okay, now for the relations, you should know about the first rib. So here I will show you some details of this first rib. Okay, so see this in the close view, you can see this first rib. It is like this. So here this is the head of the first rib, here this is the neck of the first rib, tubercle, this is shaft having upper surface, lower surface, inner border, outer border. Now on the upper surface, here you can see the elevation. This elevation is nothing but the scalene tubercle, which gives attachment to scalenus anterior muscle. In front of that there is a groove which lodges subclavian vein. So I have drawn with the blue color. Behind that there is a groove which lodges subclavian artery, which I have drawn with the red color. So this is important. Vein anteriorly, behind the scalenus anterior you get the subclavian artery. Now the same here we will draw in the diagram. So now coming to our diagram here. So in this region somewhere you get the scalene tubercle, where there is attachment of this scalenus anterior muscle. This muscle is scalenus anterior muscle. In front of that you get a groove here. On the first rib you get a groove which lodges here the subclavian artery. Here it lodges the subclavian vein, not the artery, it is subclavian vein. Okay, and behind that here you get a groove, and this groove lodges subclavian artery. So here you get artery behind the scalene tubercle. Okay, so here is the artery. The same artery continues down in the axilla as the axillary artery. So subclavian artery, this is subclavian vein. Now if you see the C7, C8 ventral ramus of C8 now, 8 cervical now, it comes over here, unites with the ventral ramus of the T1 now, and then passes over the first rib just behind the this subclavian artery and forms the lower trunk of the brachial plexus. So this is the lower trunk of brachial plexus. Okay, now if you have to draw here in this diagram, you will be drawing simply here the subclavian vein, and here this is subclavian artery, subclavian vessels. So these are the subclavian vessels, and just below that, just below the Simpson's fascia, here you get a structure naturally which actually occupies the major part of the thoracic cavity. This is actually the apex of lung. So this is apex of lung, apex of lung. This apex of lung, it comes over, or you can say it lies 3 to 4 centimeter above the anterior end of the first rib. You know, this is the first rib. Okay, and it is covered by the pleura, and this pleura is called as the cervical pleura. So here this apex of the lung is covered by pleura, and this pleura is called as the cervical pleura, to which the inferior surface of the Simpson's fascia is almost fused. Okay, so from this diagram now you can write the relations. So for the relations, see here you get superior relations, superior and inferior. Superiorly it is related to the subclavian vessels, it is related to the subclavian vessels, while inferior relation, if you see the inferior relation, inferiorly it is related to the apex of lung, apex of lung covered by cervical pleura, covered by cervical pleura. So that is about the relations. Now coming to the functions, it has actually main 2 functions. So the functions are here. See, this is the inlet, and here you get this diaphragm. Likewise for the thoracic cage you get outlet where you get the diaphragm, that is thoracoabdominal diaphragm. This thoracoabdominal diaphragm is the principal muscle of inspiration. So it moves up and down during inspiration, and it increases the intrathoracic pressure. Okay, so because of the negative intrathoracic pressure, the structures at the root of neck may get puffed up and down, but that is prevented by this diaphragm. So that is the main function of this diaphragm. So main function, it prevents the structures at the root of neck from getting puffed up and down during respiration. That is one. Second, it gives rigidity to the inlet of thorax, and it even protects the apex of the lung which lies just inferior to it. So these are the 2 functions. Now coming to the morphology, morphologically it is actually the degenerated tendon of scalenus minimus muscle, of scalenus minimus muscle. This scalenus minimus muscle is also called as pleuralis. It is also called as pleuralis muscle. Okay, so that is about the Simpson's fascia. Now here I will show you first the C7 vertebra and then the Simpson's fascia. Okay, so here now I will show you the zoom picture. See, now this is C7 vertebra. Okay, so this is the body of the C7 vertebra. Here these 2 are the transverse processes, lamina, and this is the spine of the C7 vertebra with the vertebral canal. Important thing here, you get the foramen transversarium present in the transverse process of this vertebra. Okay, now this this C7 vertebra, tip of the transverse process gives attachment to the apex of the Simpson's fascia. So now I will show you here the Simpson's fascia, if you attach on one side only, if you attach on one side the Simpson's fascia, it will be like this. Imagine this paper as the Simpson's fascia and I have attached it to the apex of the C7 vertebra. Now on both sides, if you attach this Simpson's fascia, at the same time if you imagine or keep the inlet of thorax along with it, how will be the model? Now I will show you. So the model will be seen in this way. So here you get, this is C7 vertebra, okay, which I have made it blue color. T1 vertebra also I have used blue color, shining color. In between there is a disc, intervertebral disc, and you know this is the first rib with its costal cartilage, first rib with its costal cartilage, manubrium sterni. So this is actually the inlet of thorax. In the previous video you have seen the inlet of thorax. Now this green color is the Simpson's fascia. See, it is a tent shape or the triangular in the shape. Apex I have made it with the shining paper, green paper. It is attached to the transverse process, tip of the transverse process of the C7 vertebra, and the base is attached to the inner border of the first rib and its costal cartilage, and it is partly separating the thorax from the neck. Now once we will revise this Simpson's fascia or the diaphragm. Okay, so what is the Simpson's fascia? So Simpson's fascia, it is triangular in the shape. It is also called suprapleural membrane. It has apex attached to the tip of the transverse process of C7 vertebra. Base is attached to the inner border of first rib and is costal cartilage. Relation wise, superior surface is related to the subclavian vessels, artery and the vein, and the inferior surface is related to the apex of the lung with the cervical pleura. Then coming to the functions. So functions, it has main two functions. It prevents the structures in the root of neck from getting puffed up and down during respiration. That is one. Second function, it gives rigidity to the inlet of thorax and it protects the underlying apex of the lung. And morphologically, it is the degenerated tendon of scalenus minimus muscle, which is also called as pleuralis. Okay, now we will move over to the next topic, that is structures passing through the inlet of thorax. So now here we will see the next topic, that is structures passing through the inlet of thorax. For that we will draw here again one diagram of inlet of thorax. This is manubrium sterni, okay, and on the posterior aspect, suppose here is the midline, on posterior aspect here you get body of T1 vertebra. Here you get the vertebral canal, transverse process and the spine of this T1 vertebra. And if you draw the outline of the inlet of thorax, it will be kidney shape. It is a reniform in the shape or kidney shape. Okay, so here you get the head of the first rib, neck of the first rib, and then here you get tubercle of the first rib. Okay, and this will be the diagram for the first rib on one side. Okay, similarly we will draw the first rib on the other side. Here is the head of the first rib, here is the neck region, and then here you get the tubercle of the first rib and then the shaft of the first rib. It will be somewhat like this. Okay, and the first rib is connected with the manubrium sterni through the costal cartilage, through its costal cartilage. Okay, so this is the costal cartilage of the first rib, costal cartilage of the first rib. Okay, so that is the inlet of thorax. This is the inlet of thorax. Now which are the structures passing through the inlet of thorax? Main structure that passes through the inlet of thorax is the apex of lung. Suppose here if you draw on either side, you get apex of lung. It occupies a major area of the inlet of thorax. This is anterior side, this is posterior side, this is the left side, and this is the right side of this diagram. So here this is the apex of left lung, here this is the apex of right lung, along with the cervical pleura, along with the, it is covered by the cervical pleura. So here along with the cervical pleura, you can see the apex of the lungs. Okay, now just behind the sternum, here you get the muscle. This muscle is sternohyoid muscle. This muscle is sternohyoid muscle. Still behind that you get muscle, and this muscle is sternothyroid muscle. Sternothyroid muscle going towards the thyroid. Okay, and behind that, here in the posterior part in front of the vertebral column, you get prevertebral muscles, and this muscle here is labeled as longus colli muscle. This is longus colli muscle. Okay, now coming to the tubes, here you get from the neck, you get trachea passes from the neck to the thorax. Just behind that you get here the esophagus. So here is the esophagus, and when you say trachea and esophagus, in the groove between these two tubes, that is tracheoesophageal groove, you draw left recurrent laryngeal now. Okay, now in front of the trachea you can be able to see the remains of thymus. So here what I have drawn, this is nothing but the thymus. So remains of thymus are seen here. Okay, and just behind that, here you can see the veins. So inferior thyroid veins which come out from the lower border of the isthmus of the thyroid and enters into the left brachiocephalic vein. So they are seen, inferior thyroid veins are seen here. Okay, now in addition to this, you get the major vessels which are coming from the heart, present occupying the inlet of thorax. For that, just we will revise the heart. So what are the structures? How is the structure of the heart? Suppose here is the heart. Here you get superior vena cava, which is formed by union of right brachiocephalic vein and left brachiocephalic. Left brachiocephalic vein, it crosses the origin of all the arteries arising from the arch of aorta. So this is left brachiocephalic vein. Okay, and then if you are drawing the aorta, aorta will be somewhere here. The branches from the aorta, one passes towards the right side. This is brachiocephalic trunk. Then you get another artery passes towards the left side, that is left common carotid. This is left common carotid artery. In addition to that, you get one more artery, and again that also passes towards the left side. So that is left subclavian vein. Artery, left subclavian artery. So these are the three arteries arising from it. Anyhow, here you will, so we are not going to see the structure of the heart in detail, but here you will get the pulmonary trunk, and here will be the outline of the leftover part of this heart. Okay, then here, so these important thing, concentrate on this area. These structures you will find on the right side, while these structures you will find on the left side passing through the inlet of the thorax. Okay, so here we will draw the same structures. So here you will get the artery. So this artery is a brachiocephalic trunk. Along with that you get the vein, that is right brachiocephalic vein, because this is right side. Along with that you get the right vagus nerve and the right phrenic nerve. Just behind the costal cartilage, here you will be able to see the internal thoracic artery. On the left side you will be able to see this common carotid. So left common carotid and left subclavian artery, along with the left brachiocephalic vein. Here this is left brachiocephalic vein, left vagus nerve and left phrenic nerve, and here, like here, right side, here also you get the internal thoracic artery. Okay, one more structure you will be able to see on the left side, and this is thoracic duct, which lies on the left side of the esophagus. So this is thoracic duct. And now coming to, this is the neck region. This is the neck region of the first rib. This neck is related from medial to lateral, the Swan structures. Neck of the first rib is related to the Swan structures from medial to lateral. They are sympathetic, S for sympathetic chain. Then V for vein, that is first posterior intercostal vein. Okay, first posterior intercostal vein. A for artery. The artery is superior intercostal artery, superior intercostal artery, and the nerve is, as you have seen previously, that is the ventral ramus of the first thoracic nerve. So these are the structures passing through the inlet of thorax. To revise the structures in the midline, they are sternohyoid, sternothyroid, remains of thymus, inferior thyroid vein, then trachea, esophagus, left recurrent laryngeal nerve, and the longus colli muscle. On the left side you get apex of the left lung, on the right side you get the apex of the right lung with the cervical pleura, brachiocephalic trunk, right brachiocephalic vein, right vagus, right phrenic nerve, right internothoracic artery, and the Swan structures near the neck of the rib. On the left side you get the left common carotid artery, left subclavian artery, left brachiocephalic vein, left vagus, left phrenic, left internal thoracic artery, thoracic duct, and the Swan structures near the neck of the first rib. Now coming to the next, that is the last part, applied aspect. So applied aspect or the applied anatomy of this inlet of thorax, it is the thoracic inlet syndrome. It is thoracic inlet syndrome, and commonly it is called as the thoracic outlet syndrome in clinical practices, but it is one and the same. What are the reasons for this inlet syndrome? What are the causes? Sometimes you get, that means in 0.5% cases you get presence of the cervical rib. So if this rib is present, it may compress the structures at the inlet. Suppose if you draw here the cervical rib will be attached to the C7 vertebra and will be coming like this. This will be the structure of the cervical rib if present. So naturally, see, it is very clear, if it is present, it may compress the lower truncobrachial plexus or it may compress the subclavian vessels. Okay, so that is one reason. Another reason, in accidents you may get this syndrome, and sometimes you get hypertrophy of scalenus anterior muscle, hypertrophy of scalenus anterior muscle. So these are the reasons for this syndrome. Now symptoms, how the patient will come to you, what are the symptoms of the patient? So what are the symptoms? So symptoms, depending on what structure is damaged, you will get the symptoms. Either the symptoms will be neurological because of the compression of that lower truncobrachial plexus, and it is 80 to 90% cases seen, and vein vascular, that is seen in 10% cases, vascular symptoms, and this is because of the compression of subclavian vessels. What will happen if the lower trunk of the brachial plexus is compressed? It will lead to the pain, tingling, numbness sensation along the medial side of the arm, forearm, wasting of the intrinsic muscles of the hand, and weak grasping of the subjects will be there. Pain in the neck and the shoulder will be seen. So that is about the neurological symptoms, which are very common. Vascular symptoms are rare. If the vein is compressed, it leads to the edema, and if the artery is compressed, less blood is flowing. So naturally radial pulse will be very weak, or sometimes pallor or coldness of the hand is seen. So that is all about the inlet of thorax, and now I am very sure that you have understood the inlet of thorax. Thank you.